Welcome to my channel. Welcome to another Gene Key contemplation. We're going to dive into Gene Key 13. It's the current sun transit that we are experiencing. Whether you're watching this video during the sun transit of Gene Key 13 or you have this in your profile, I think it'll be a beautiful conversation to have. Before we dive into the shadow, the gift, and the city, as we do for all of the Gene Keys, I wanted to touch on again the Codon Ring. For this one is the Codon Ring of Purification. If you're new to the Gene Keys, there are 21 codon rings, and basically these are like a pairing of gene keys together. Richard Rudd refers to them in the book here at the back, the glossary of terms, which are just beautiful. A chemical family within the body made up of one or more codons, codon being a section of your DNA that's tied to a specific amino acid. And he really describes these codon rings as like how we attract different people in our life, or why we're born into the families that we're born into. And basically this there's a DNA mutation occurring, and this is happening as a part of the Great Change. And it's going to bring humanity into the biological realization of its true nature and unity. So Richard Rudd speaks a lot about the future human, and basically the future human is one who is operating at the level of the cities. So this codon ring that we're in right now is called Purification, and I've just had some amazing synchronicities. It was the first snowfall here, which for me, the snow falling and the blanket of white snow represents a purification. As I shared in my previous Gene Key, I just decided to pull my energy off of social media platforms where I spent a lot of time for like almost 10 years. And it's a big shift for me. And my partner and I are experiencing big shifts. And I also shared in the previous contemplation, as well as throughout this year, some of the groupings we have together, which are quite profound and really gave validation to what we sensed when we had initially met. One of those codon rings is the codon ring of the whirlwind, and the codon ring of union, which tie to the codon ring of this one. We're in purification, of which we're both experiencing purification. We don't have this Gene Key, but I'll share a picture of the groupings of the codon rings here, which is just fascinating. And if anything, I hope it inspires you to, if you haven't done so already, to dig into your connections to the different people in your life and what the story of that connection is, and maybe why you are tied together. And so this codon ring of purification with the snow falling, I thought of Sharon. If you haven't heard me talk about Sharon, she passed away a couple of years ago, and the day after she passed, there was an unforecasted great amount of snow that fell upon us and where we lived, and it just felt like a symbol of her. And my partner and I were having this celebratory moment and deep realizations and deep epiphanies, and I felt her kind of being a part of that and this purification into a new beginning. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, did you experience any purification this week? Well, we're going to dive into the shadow, the gift, and the city for the other themes that you may be experiencing as well. And if you've already explored the codon rings, I'd love to hear the interesting parallels or synchronicities or connections that you have with your family, your friends, your coworkers, whatever it is. Okay, so let's dive into the shadow, the gift, and the city. The shadow is discord, the gift is discernment, and the city is empathy. So at discord, the dilemma here is pessimism. It's being completely pessimistic and focused on only the bad news and how the world is kind of going to shit. And the problem at this shadow is an inability to listen. We're not really listening. And we can't hear the secrets that are literally housed in our DNA, and that our heart is literally feeding us this wisdom this surrendered path that the masters and ancients would speak about, the secrets of love, the secrets of surrender, the secrets of wisdom. We have all of that within us, but at the shadow level, we are stuck. The shadow of all of the gene keys represents this area where we're stuck and where we're forgetting what I shared in the beginning with these groupings of the codon rings, and this future human is to be able to potentially embody more of the highest frequencies, where we remember we are interconnected. So this gene key really represents the collective frequency, and the majority of the collective is mostly in the shadow state still at this point of history. And so we will hear, even if we're experiencing higher frequency states, like myself, I hear the thought forms of the lower frequency states. And if I'm not discerning, it is very easy to attach to those thoughts and start to project them into my life and feed the pessimism. The gift of discernment, now getting to this gift, the gift of discernment is to be able to discern the mind from the heart. And as Richard Rudd says, it's not necessarily that the mind is wrong, but that the heart must come first and the mind follows the heart. And as he also mentions, which is important, I feel that we can sometimes misinterpret, the heart is not an emotion. The heart is a still place. It's a stillness. It's a quiet space where thoughts emerge from, or inspiration emerges from. And when we listen inwardly, because we've shed a lot of the wounding and the trauma that's been stored in our DNA from the shadow, we're no longer choosing to carry the karmic backpack, and our mind becomes a little more still, so we're really able to hear. And when we listen at this level, what arises will bring us a sense of freedom, a sense of certainty, and a sense of excitement. So that's one way of discerning the heart from the mind. And the mind and the shadow frequencies carries this frequency of fear, of needing to be safe, to feel certain. And if the mind is looking for certainty, it will lead to discord. If the mind is leading before the heart, it will lead to this discord ultimately. And I love how he differentiates the different types of listening that we can have. And this isn't just about listening from the ears, but it's listening from the belly, and listening from our aura, and listening from this understanding of osmosis. And he differentiates emotional listening and heart listening. With emotional listening, we are not truly listening because we're like formulating our response in our minds while the person is still talking. So we're coming with our agenda, we're coming with our judgments, and maybe a sense of needing to prove or to be right or whatever it is. With the heart, there's that stillness, and there's a true listening. And there's the listening beyond just what's being said, but the energy, the movements, the body movements, the facial expressions. And it's really this osmosis where you're taking in the person's full heart. And we can only really listen to another person's heart when we've been able to listen to our own hearts. So this gift of discernment is really one of a deep transformation. If you're sitting in the space of somebody who can really listen, it can transform you. Certainly it transforms ourselves when we listen to our own hearts, but just being in the space of somebody else who's really listening is such a gift. And this listening is how we create resonance. And this is a sympathy. He differentiates, Richard Rudd speaks of sympathy as being with someone and being sympathetic. At the acidic level, we get to empathy. And this empathy is really about taking the other person as you. And the number 13, he says, is a master number. It's a very auspicious number. It's tied to Jesus Christ, the Master Jesus Christ, and his teaching of, love thy neighbor, which at the shadow level, love thy neighbor is usually misinterpreted, but also the number 13th, right? We put that pessimistic twist on, it's unlucky and beware of, Friday the 13th or whatever the judgments are. When in actuality, the 13th in the zodiac is the sign of the spider that sits in the middle of the web, and the 8 legs represent the 8 directions, and the legs are listening to the whole web, all the other 12 zodiac signs. And this love thy neighbor is really this getting to the center point of your neighbor is you. Like, know your neighbor as you. They are not separate. And so empathy is this ability to really digest and embody this understanding of being interconnected and being one with all that is. This field of consciousness. Yeah, he has the remembrance of our union with all that is. And it's so easy to see right now how on social media or mainstream media, all the different games that play out at the shadow level and projecting the pessimism of the way the world's going, or this lack of listening to what the truth is. I mean, the deeper we listen, as Richard Rudd says, the deeper we listen, the more hope we experience. When we are not able to listen, we completely miss all the magic. We miss the beauty. And we distrust that our life story can be beautiful. We get tied into the mainstream scientific world that, all things move from order to disorder, and the world is moving into disorder, when in fact, what if the world is moving into the most beautiful story, as more and more people allow this mutation to take hold and their consciousness to rise, and their listening of their heart and others through empathy, through true love and surrender, that humanity is moving on a beautiful path. And so many of the astrologers and those that I follow are speaking about this year, 2025, being such an accelerated year for transformation. I know I certainly feel the excitement, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of these themes, whether you're into the codon rings and geek out about all the connections that you might have. For me, the story of the purification has been such a beautiful one. I'll finish with this, and that's a personal. The whirlwind, since I met my partner, as I shared in my previous video, has been such a journey of transformation, a whirlwind. And landing here on the sea, which I just learned the Pacific stands for peace, feels like, the whirlwind is over. We're now sitting in the eye of the storm with all of our experience of the transformation and the mutation, and it's still ongoing, obviously, and how that will ripple out across the sea and across the work that we do individually and collectively. And yes, I'm very excited about the times that we're in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video and hearing anything you wish to share on this Gene Key.